So now that you have a brief introduction to what rhetoric is and to how rhetoric works in the world, let's talk more specifically about the rhetorical appeals of ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos, pathos, and logos are what we consider rhetorical appeals or rhetorical strategies. They are ways that people make arguments, ways that people use rhetorical strategies to have other people take on a particular point of view, a particular approach to a social, political, or ideological issue. Ethos, pathos, and logos are ways that people supplement arguments in ways that people try to communicate with a certain goal in mind. So ethos, pathos, and logos have powers of persuasion. They are rhetorical strategies that all of us use every single day, whether we know it or not, in explicit or implicit ways, in ways that are subtle or obvious. We all use rhetoric. Each day we all use ethos, pathos, and logos. So let's talk a little bit more about them. Think about a really persuasive commercial. Commercials exist to sell you a product, to sell a product. Do you feel like commercials work on you? Do you see a commercial and then buy that product? Perhaps indirectly. Commercials are persuasive and are successful if they get you, the consumer, to buy that product. Many of us would imagine that commercials don't work on us, but then think about why you buy particular products. Think about why you would buy Nike shoes rather than Adidas. Think about why you would buy a Ford car rather than a Chevy car, a car from GM. Think about why you would go and see one movie over another. That's rhetoric. It makes you do things. It helps you into certain perspectives. It makes certain arguments that you are receptive to or alternatively not receptive to. If an advertisement or a commercial succeeds in making a person buy something, that advertisement or commercial has been successful and persuasive. So rhetoric was first formally codified or put into words in ancient Greece, but I should stress that rhetoric has obviously been around long before the Greeks officially codified it and theorized it. You'll see that Greece is right in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Greece was very much a hub for many cultures to come together on the Mediterranean Sea, which made travel much easier. You'll see that to the east there's Turkey, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, Israel. You'll see that to the south there's all of Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco. You'll see to the north there is, say, like France, or what would become modern-day France, Northern Europe, England, Spain. So Greece was very much a hub where all of these cultures came together. It was a hub for cultural diffusion, a hub for cultural exchange. That's where rhetoric was first codified or put into words by Plato and Aristotle, two philosophers and rhetoricians. So rhetoric was first formally defined by Aristotle. Aristotle called rhetoric the proofs furnished by the speech. And he says the proofs furnished by the speech are of three kinds. The first depends upon the moral character of the speaker, the second upon putting the hearer into a certain frame of mind, and the third upon the speech itself insofar as it proves or seems to prove. So that's from Aristotle's The Art of Rhetoric. Each of these three rhetorical appeals that Aristotle describes are ethos, pathos, and logos. So the first depends upon the moral character of the speaker. That is the speaker's credibility, the speaker's authority, the speaker's believability and likability. That is ethos. And again, we use speaker very loosely here. That could be the creator of a Facebook status or a tweet. That could be the creator of a viral YouTube video. That could be the writer of a certain text or book. It could be the creator of a podcast. So secondly, we have putting the hearer into a certain frame of mind. That is pathos. That is using an appeal to an emotion. Certainly persuasive, certainly easy to be manipulative, but I think is largely, probably frequently in popular culture, the most persuasive of the three. And then finally, the third upon the speech itself, insofar as it proves or seems to prove. So obviously the important word here is prove. That is logos, that is using evidence, using appeals to logic, appeals to reason, appeals to science, to empiricism, to make a point or to supplement an argument. Those all come from Aristotle's The Art of Rhetoric and are obviously still very salient today. So let's start by looking at ethos a little bit more. Ethos comes from the same Greek root as the word for ethical. Ethos refers to the author or creator's credibility, believability, and or likability. Ethos can come from inside of a text and be intrinsic, or it can come from outside of a text and be extrinsic based upon circumstances, based upon background, based upon reputation. But ethos refers to the speaker or a writer. But with ethos, the speaker or writer must demonstrate credibility to the audience to be persuasive. A good example of ethos is if your college professor walked into class on the first day with cargo shorts and flip-flops on. That would be not in line with having a professional ethos. It would be considered somewhat unprofessional, somewhat inappropriate. It would at least make you question whether that person has a PhD, whether that person is qualified to be teaching you. So let's look at an example. Doctors have lots of ethos. In this example, this doctor has a ton of ethos. So pretend that you are sick, you have a stomach ache, and you go to the doctor, and your doctor gives you a prescription for a pill that's going to make you feel better. Would you take that pill? Now, I'm guessing many of us would, primarily because our doctor here has lots of ethos. We know just simply from the fact that she's a doctor that she has, number one, say like the bare minimum, has a undergraduate college degree. We know that she's also been to graduate school because she's a doctor. We know that she has been to medical school because she's a doctor. And finally, we know she has done a residency at minimum because she's a doctor. And obviously, we can probably guess that she has a number of years of professional experience looking at cases exactly like my stomach ache. So I'm guessing she has lots of ethos for that reason, for those educational reasons alone. It's also worth considering when you go to a doctor's office, what do you always see on the wall? You always see their degree. You always see their degree from some medical university, from the Medical University of South Carolina, for instance. You always see those. What that does is it builds ethos. It builds credibility, it builds reliability, it builds authority. Now we know, just say from appearances, this doctor is obviously dressed like how doctors dress. She has a stethoscope. She has like a relatively professional level of clothing on. You know, the white smock that doctors tend to wear. It looks the part, right? She looks the part. She looks like a doctor. So I'm going to guess that because the doctor has lots of authority, lots of ethos, you would trust her medical advice. When a trusted doctor gives you advice, you may not understand all of the medical reasoning behind that advice, but you follow it anyway because you believe the doctor knows what she is talking about. You trust her. Now, this is in direct comparison to if you are at the mall and one of your friends gives you a pill and tells you that it's going to make your stomach ache feel better. That friend does not have ethos. That friend does not have credibility, believability, or authority. They are not doctors. They do not have like all of the educational qualifications that our doctor has. They don't have ethos, and don't take that pill. Not a smart idea. Figure out how to fix your stomach ache some other way. No ethos. Bad idea. You'll see this in infomercials. They oftentimes use ethos to get you to buy a product. In this case, we have Billy Mays in an OxyClean commercial that I won't make you watch. But Billy Mays is a person who does lots of infomercials, has credibility because he looks the part. He looks like someone who knows a lot about cleaning clothes, looks like a professional, is obviously an expert in that field. Let's move on. What you see here is a halftime show during a basketball game. This is inside the NBA on TNT. This is essentially, if you're not familiar with sports and with halftime shows, during the halftime show, these four gentlemen are going to give us insight into the game. They're going to tell us stuff about the basketball game that is happening that is not obvious, that we as regular viewers, regular people who are not experts, would maybe not pick up on. So they have lots of ethos. Number one, I don't know if anyone is a big basketball fan, but I believe all four of these gentlemen are former basketball players, like in the NBA, professional basketball players, I should say. So they have ethos from their credibility because they've been where the players have been. They've been down by 5 at halftime. You know, they kind of know what the players are going through because they've experienced it. Whereas you know the average person at home probably has not done that unless you're all professional basketball players, which I doubt. So they have lots of ethos because of their personal experience, because of their expertise, because of their experience in the world of professional basketball. But they also build ethos in other more subtle ways. So for instance, the presence of all of these logos, of the TNT logo, builds ethos. The fact that this halftime show is sponsored by Hyundai, a respected car brand, certainly builds ethos. The set looks professional. It looks like it's in some very professional studio. It's well done. Everything looks very high quality. It's very bright. The camera quality is excellent. All of the gentlemen are dressed very well. They look very dapper. They clearly have woken up today and put lots of effort into their appearance. They are professionals. They take their job seriously. You can tell that just from their dress. So ethos is contextual, but ethos is built in a variety of different ways here. Also, just the fact that they're on TV builds ethos. Not everyone can be on TV. All right, so let's talk about pathos. So pathos refers to feelings or appeals to emotion. Pathos is stories, scenarios, or statements that are designed to create an emotional response. When you are persuaded by pathos, you accept a claim based on how it makes you feel without necessarily fully analyzing how valid that claim is. So pathos stretches far beyond just positive or negative emotions, but pathos can help you be persuaded by emotions such as fear, love, patriotism, hatred, joy, humor, or guilt. Those are all emotions that can be intensely persuasive. The use of pathos can be extremely effective, but also extremely manipulative. So pathos has the same Greek root as words such as empathy, sympathy, pathetic, and antipathy, all of those dealing with emotions. So I'm not going to show you this. It's a very sad video that I don't want to subject everyone to. But this is, you can tell just from this little screen cap that you see on your screen, it's a YouTube video that uses intense pathos, intense emotion. It's actually a public service announcement trying to get people to not drunk drive, not participate in drunk driving, which is obviously a very good public service announcement. I'm not going to make you watch it because I don't want to subject you all. It's intensely sad. It's awful, actually. But it uses very sad music. You can think of, say, like a PETA commercial where they use very sad music. And then they show you a very sad story of a person losing their life because of drunk driving. It is intensely emotional, and it is essentially making an argument that you should be very careful about not drunk driving, and that you should hold your friends and family to a high standard when it comes to this issue if you want to see them live a long and healthy life. So look at these visual advertisements. These advertisements use visual rhetoric to make arguments. You'll see they all appeal to emotions. Both words and pictures can achieve this appeal. Pathos is the use of emotions to make arguments. You'll see that this St. Jude's Children's Hospital advertisement in the top left-hand corner is intensely laden with emotions. Finding cures, saving children, obviously a very noble cause. It makes you want to give money. It makes you want to donate time and effort and labor. Certainly, I think is relatively persuasive. Over here, Huggies helped launch the National Diaper Bank Network. Very happy baby, positive emotions, makes us happy, makes us excited for the world. There's a level of excitement and vibrancy in this image. I think it's largely persuasive. And then we've all hopefully seen ASPCA commercials or PETA commercials where appeals to emotion make us want to give money to help dogs and cats and animals. Oftentimes, these commercials will have very sad music. They might have images of a dog or a cat where you can see the animal's ribs because they're malnourished or underfed. Lots of emotion, lots of appeals to our feelings. Very persuasive too, and largely, I think, effective. So lastly, we have logos. Logos is the use of logic or reason to make an argument or to supplement an argument. Logos refers to any attempt to appeal to the intellect. Logos appeals to the left side of the brain. We find certain patterns, conventions, and methods of reasoning to be convincing and persuasive. Logos in the world is primarily found in numbers, in polls, in facts, in statistics. It's the use of logic to make arguments, the use of reason, science, empiricism to make arguments. So it's obviously found in the English words logic and logical, the root, I should say, which means language or word in Greek. So this is an infographic that you might find, say, on Twitter or Facebook. This uses visual rhetoric or visual design and display to showcase a fact, or specifically two facts. So basically, it uses the fact that 5 seconds is the amount of time it takes to stare at your screen to answer a text when you are driving, and it showcases that is essentially the length of a football field that you drive without looking at the road, which is obviously quite dangerous. It uses a fact, it uses a statistic to make an argument that you should not text while driving. So effective persuasion uses all three kinds of appeals: ethos, pathos, and logos. These persuasive appeals are rarely found in isolated situations. It's very difficult to find ethos without finding pathos and logos present in some form. And likewise, you're not going to find, say, pathos without a little bit of logos and ethos. Overall, lots of good arguments, lots of good persuasive appeals. You incorporate all three. These are not all-encompassing. There are arguments that don't fall neatly into one category. That is okay. Rhetoric is messy always, and rhetoric is dynamic and moves, so that's a good thing. But anyway, so these are the rhetorical appeals: ethos, pathos, and logos. Bye.